Hello, historians. It's Mrs. Lancette, and welcome to your very first set of note-taking. We are going to skip the first set of notes in our Unit 1, the Constitution packets, and go directly to Notes 2, Writing the Constitution. When you first see our set of notes, you're going to notice that you have boxes in your note-taking packet that look just like the ones on the screen that you see here. And when we do the notes, your job will be to fill in anything that's in red font. So for example, if you find the box that says Philadelphia on your notes, you're going to go ahead and fill in the blanks Constitutional Convention. You'll notice that I always put a pencil, like you see here, when it's your turn to write, and then the fill in the blanks that you're responsible for will be in red font. So the lecture today, or the notes today, are all about revising or replacing the Articles of Confederation in May of 1787, when delegates from most states met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They were shocked into action after Shays' Rebellion and decided that there was a change that needed to be made, either in terms of revising the Articles of Confederation or replacing them. So the delegates, as they headed to Philadelphia, came with two different mindsets. The first was the group that thought that a strong federal government would overpower the citizens in the states, so they wanted to keep the power of the federal government down. And then there were those who felt that the articles were too weak and that the nation was a joke, that they needed a new plan. So already the delegates were in the position to have conflict right from the start of the convention. This is a picture of the room where the delegates met. This is in Independence Hall. It's where the Declaration of Independence was signed as well, about 11 years earlier. You can see the chair where George Washington, presided over the convention. As a leader during the Revolutionary War, he was a clear choice for the leader of this convention. At the bottom of your notes packet, you can see a timeline, and your job will be to know the order of events more than knowing the dates of events. But we will have an opportunity to practice with the flashcards for the timeline as well. All right, so there you go. The Constitutional Convention was held in 1787. 1787, the Constitutional Convention was held, and this gentleman, James Madison, rose to the top in terms of leadership during that 6-month time period when people from all over the new United States met to try to figure out how to keep their country strong. And his job really ended up being informational in terms of his knowledge about different political systems. So he became known as the father of the Constitution. He was on the side that argued for a stronger federal government, and he left very detailed notes for us as primary source documents that allow us to know almost a play-by-play in terms of what happened daily at the convention, in terms of the debates that took place, the issues that arose, the topics that they covered. Through his careful note-taking and his careful studying, Madison becomes known as the father of the Constitution, who helped start to plan the shape of our new Constitution. Now, of course, it wasn't easy. There were many times when issues arose and the delegates quickly realized that they were coming to the convention with very different viewpoints. And so they knew to keep the country afloat, they would need to find some common ground. And they found that in the United States Declaration of Independence and through their guiding principles. These guiding principles, and there are 7, help to give the delegates to the Constitutional Convention a starting place, a place that they could all look back to and say, these are the things we agree to. And so these are what, as they were writing the Constitution, the delegates referred back to regularly. The first is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty means that the government gets its power from the citizens. So the idea being that the government is subject to the will of the people, and it works for us to protect our rights and liberties. Along with that is this idea of republicanism. Republicanism means that citizens elect people to represent them in government. And so because we can't all be in government, the idea being that we elect somebody to represent what we would do if we could be there, how we would vote, laws we would want, rules we would want. Next, we have the third guiding principle, federalism, which is the idea that states are unified into a nation. Remember, we have 13 colonies that had for a long time been in charge of themselves, agreeing now to be a part of a larger nation. And so federalism is where you give power to a federal government, the central government, to unify those states together. Our fourth guiding principle is the separation of powers. Realizing that they were giving more power to the central government, the writers of the Constitution were nervous. They were nervous that the power would maybe get into the wrong hands and that we would have our liberties taken away. And so to avoid that, they decided to divide the powers of the government into 3 equal branches so that no one branch would be all powerful. They wanted to avoid creating a monarchy where one person perhaps greedily would want to take away the power of the people. The fifth guiding principle is the idea of checks and balances. Again, that the branches that they've now created would have the powers divided, and then trying to figure out how to balance each of those branches so that not one was more powerful than the others. The sixth guiding principle is this idea of limited government. The framers wanted a government that only had the powers specifically granted to it by the Constitution, so that our elected leaders would be expected to obey the law, which hadn't always been true in previous governments. For example, kings and queens, they're the ones that would make up the rules, and they could break the rules and nothing would happen. So in our new country, the idea was that the elected leaders would have to also follow the law. And finally, the last guiding principle is individual rights. The delegates were careful to make sure that no government power could take away individual rights of citizens, and no majority could overpower the individuals. So the basic idea being that government exists to protect the rights of individuals from a powerful majority. As the Constitutional Convention proceeded, and all of the various issues were debated, the delegates wanted to make sure their decisions fit within all of these 7 guiding principles. And there you go. That's it. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow.